In this video we will discuss about shining a light on Sahara Desert. An incoming plume of dust from the Sahara Desert will create vivid, picturesque sunsets and sunrises from Texas to Florida over the upcoming week, according to AccuWeather meteorologists. Thanks to a weather pattern called the African Easterly Jet, which consists of strong low to mid-level winds in the atmosphere over Central Africa, an enormous plume of dust has been airlifted and blown across the Atlantic Ocean. On Wednesday, satellite imagery from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration captured a robust plume that stretched from the African coast to Cuba, a distance just short of 4,000 miles. While the dust is expected to reach the Gulf Coast this weekend, it may not be all that noticeable until next week when high concentrations arrive, according to AccuWeather senior meteorologist Adam Doty. From southeast Texas to Florida are areas where the dust will be the most noticeable, Doty said. It will most likely cause the sky to appear milky white. Doty said the dust might be thick enough in a few areas to make the sky look hazy, but for the most part the dust will remain in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. Typically, the sky appears blue because the gases that make up the atmosphere naturally scatter blue hues with shorter wavelengths than yellow, orange or red. During the sunrise and sunset, the sunlight has to pass through more of the atmosphere because of the low sun angle. This makes the sunrise and sunset appear with a yellow or reddish hue. According to NOAA, a heavy load of dust in the atmosphere can enhance this effect, leading to longer-lasting, duskier colors that cause vivid sunsets and sunrises. According to NASA, each year winds pick up an estimated 100 million tons of dust from the Sahara Desert and a large amount of it blows across the Atlantic Ocean, which can influence the weather. The time of year these dust plumes become more frequent is synchronous with the Atlantic hurricane season. These dust plumes can suppress tropical cyclone development over the Atlantic Ocean. According to NOAA, the dusty air has about 50% less moisture than the typical tropical atmosphere, and, as a result, can weaken an organized tropical cyclone or growing tropical disturbance. Sunlight, still low in the horizon, is traveling through a larger volume of atmosphere, allowing for more particle scatter. As I look at the distant sun disk, violet and blue spectrums are left behind, allowing for yellow, orange and red to break through, the Rayleigh scattering effect. The first architecture sunlight meets is the atmosphere. It is the first physical structure that shapes and tunes the sun rays. Sometimes subtle, other times blunt, its impact on how we perceive light is radical. As light reaches Earth, our atmosphere and the surface air, light is bounced, diffused and reflected accordingly, and at such levels that the impact is different from one atmospheric condition to another. It is the first environment light interacts with, and in turn it is greatly impacted by it. In November of 2021, taking the opportunity of the yearly fieldwork of the Architecture Master Program I lead at the Royal Danish Academy, I ventured into a journey defined by an investigation, to follow the light as a physical journey, from sunrise in the Sahara Desert to sunset in the Atlantic coast, and attempt to describe how this winter light, throughout the hours of the day and in different landscapes, meets architecture in our eyes. Where does light start? What happens before, when and after it reaches architecture? How does light engage with the built environment? These are crucial questions that have been explored for centuries and have defined many approaches to architecture. This essay is explorative but not universal. It follows a 2-week desert and mountain crossing, where special attention was placed on natural light at a specific day, in a specific site, at a specific time. The photographs in this text attempt to convey this journey. Back in the desert dune, seeing the sun's disk appearing in the horizon, I look down at the dunes below. Sharp shadows start to define the space three-dimensionally, making it almost scaleless, a frozen sea or a zoomed-in ripple. Between this majestic space I glimpse the tents. One, a piece of contemporary high-tech design, the other, a traditional Berber tent, made of goat hair and sheep wool, in hand-loom widths sewn together. One exploding with light like a nylon lamp, heating up exponentially. The other, evaporating the morning dew with its dark color, and delicately controlling the amount of light allowed to enter. One built for ultralight minimal transport, is a shelter. The other, fine-tuned to the desert through its hundreds of years of evolution, is a home. Morning light slowly seeps in through the weave, as a gentle starry night, never blinding, and allowing just enough light to avoid overheating. The northern region of the desert is lined with the Anti-Atlas mountain range. a series of rising topographies which from the south, announce the main Atlas mountain range further north. The region, populated for centuries, consists of small settlements linked to riverbeds and gorges, which have allowed access to water and the consequent thriving of life. Much of the traditional constructions are made of mud bricks, rammed earth and mud cladding. The courtyard constructions, organically expanding in the landscape, are several stories tall, and often challenge the relationship between material and structural ambition, although the structures have often survived hundreds of years, proving their tectonic solidity. These are the Kasbahs. Here, the terrain is not desert flat. It is dynamic and often steep. The mud color of the Kasbahs, fortified mud towns and citadels, often blend in with the varied topography, and light reflected off the landscape reveals or hides the architecture intermittently. As I admire 8 Ben Haddou, across its the Asif Unila seasonal river, I need time to distinguish the landscape from the urban structure. The second architecture light meets, is the landscape. Flat or mountainous, sea or land and everything in between, light is reflected by the large-scale context. The geology of the territory, mud, granite, black basalt or greenish sandstone, color the light, redefining the architecture's form and hues. If one is lucky to have cumulus clouds hovering at speed, the light theater is overwhelming in its variation. Like a fast-changing color filter on a photo set, the landscape and the town appear to change not only in color and shades, but also scale and depth seem to be constantly altered. T is not only the formal structure of the village that is defined by light. Consequently, also the interior spaces are impacted by the nuanced rays, and how they are perceived inside the architecture. The structure's materiality greatly shapes the already curated light, but the traces of its journey through atmosphere and landscape can still be perceived. Light, like water, finds the smallest cracks, tinting the inner spaces of these ancient structures through courtyards and small openings. A fine example of how architecture can curate light through massing, surface color and material, manifested as a catalogue of spatial expressions in constant dialogue. High rooms allow for small ceiling light shafts to bounce and give just enough light without heating the space, atomizing the blunt force of the sun. Just as nuanced as the courtyard. Nature and artifice overlap. The materiality of the surfaces evolves from hard and cold materials at low level, to soft and warm higher up in the niches carved out of the atrium's periphery. From marble to tiles, from plaster to cedar wood, not only do these materials react differently to temperature, but also to light. As a curated lens, only in winter do the white plaster wall surfaces receive light, reflecting it downwards and making the mosaic zellige explode with color. The warm cedar ceilings, a chromatic warm contrast, as are the large wooden doors which mark the entrances to chambers. The courtyard greenery and its reflection of light is in constant dialogue with the architecture which frame the trees. At eye level, the division of trunk and branches is reflected in the walls where mosaic ends and plaster work starts. An inverted symmetry which balances the way light and color reaches our eyes. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, let me know in the comments below and don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.